So I'd now like to bring to the microphone our final speaker, Clare O'Donnell. Thanks, Clare.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Ovarian Cancer Australia for inviting me to share my story with you and to talk about how I cope living with cancer and how I manage the fear of recurrence. So, a little bit about me. Perhaps like many of you, I remember the day that cancer came into my life like it was yesterday. It was in fact 4.5 years ago. Again, my story might be similar to many of you. After 8 months of going to my GP with symptoms of extreme fatigue, swelling of my abdomen, and extremely painful periods, my GP told me that I just needed to lose some weight and I would be fine. He never examined me, he never palpated my abdomen or did any tests, any blood tests. By the end of the 8 months, the swelling had extended up towards my chest and I was coughing a lot. And unknown to me at the time that it was pleural effusions that was causing this cough. By this time, GP had said that I had a virus. I asked for a blood test at this point and I was told it wasn't necessary as a virus can take a long time to clear and I just have to be patient. So at this point, I changed my GP. At the first meeting with my new GP, she sent me for some scans. And to cut a long story short, cancer was found in my chest cavity, close to my heart, tumours in my liver, stomach, omentum, pelvis and ovary, and it was stage 4 ovarian cancer. My GP explained that it was terminal and that I may have less than 12 months to live and that I should get my affairs in order. I had 3 months of chemo, surgery, and then a further 3 months of chemo. I'm very lucky. I responded very well to the chemo, and then I was administered Avastin every 3 weeks for 3.5 years. Then the Avastin stopped working. The cancer was back. I had genetic testing done before going on a trial. It found that I am BRCA negative but HRD positive, which meant that I was suitable for a PARP inhibitor trial. The trial also included an immunotherapy with the PARP, but I had a reaction to the immunotherapy immediately. I got very sick as it was attacking my liver. So I'm now on the PARP inhibitor only. I'm now on olaparib. So that's where I'm at now. So back to normal. Well, survivorship comes with a lot of hurdles. And what is normal? After a cancer diagnosis, we all have to live with whatever is the new normal. And a big part of that, for me, was the fear of recurrence and learning to live with that fear of recurrence. So how did I cope with living with ovarian cancer? When I was told it was terminal, I knew I had 2 choices. One was to mope around it and be upset and think of why me. I chose the other option, to get out and enjoy every single day. I kept thinking, let me live. I want to live till 50. I'm too young to die. All I'm asking for is just 2 years. But I'm glad to say that was 4.5 years ago. Everyone was telling me to complete my bucket list, but I really didn't have one. I love this beautiful country and I decided to buy a motorhome and go out and enjoy the beauty that this country has to offer. When my 6 months of chemo was finished, we started our travels around Australia. I didn't realise that I was going to be on Avastin chemo, so we had to plan this trip with precision. We had to book chemo for every 3 weeks in a different town or city, wherever we were going to be. We had a wonderful response from the oncologists around the country. They were happy to see me and agreed to sign off my chemo every 3 weeks. I cleared it with my health insurer and off we went on our adventure. Me, my husband Mark and our dog Ruby, living the life that we wanted to. So I think something Gemma said was, after having a full-time job of dealing with surgery, chemotherapy, side effects, managing hospital appointments, etc., it is time for great relief. I was positive and energized for those first couple of years, but then I started thinking of recurrence. It just sneaked up on me, usually at the most inappropriate times. And as Hayley just mentioned, it was, for me, it was late at night, or it was when I was alone, or when I was trying to sleep. The fear of reoccurrence is never far away, especially at bedtime, and those thoughts creep in. And then by the morning, I think, why worry? Why was I so worried? This cancer came upon me so out of the blue, and I guess my recurrence will. So why am I spending my evenings in bed worrying about it at all? But I did worry, and there were a couple of times I got very scared, and I actually ended up in accident in emergency a few times. One time I was coughing up blood, I thought I was coughing up blood when I was brushing my teeth before I went to bed. Again, it was like bedtime. We ended up in accident and emergency, and they gave me some x-rays to check for blood clots in my lungs. The x-rays were all clear. 4 o'clock in the morning, I was still in A&E. The doctor still couldn't find out what was wrong until he saw some blood running down my lips. He examined my mouth. Turns out it wasn't a blood clot after all. It was in fact just my gums bleeding, which was a side effect of my treatment. I felt really stupid, and I think the registrar did too. So there's a few A&E, late night A&E trips. There was one when we were on a road trip, and I had real heavy pain in my arm. I thought I was having a heart attack, and we pulled into a country town hospital, and they quickly ECG and etc. tested. My heart was fine, and then they linked me up with an oncologist in the city through Skype, and he explained one of the side effects of my treatment is muscle pain, severe muscle pain. That's exactly what I had. If I'd only known about what my symptoms were, it would have saved me a lot of anxiety. And yeah, I wish I'd checked that out previously. I have now learned about the side effects of my treatment, so that I don't panic and I don't cause that unnecessary anxiety. I accept that for the rest of my life, there will be fear of recurrence, but I now make sure it doesn't take over my life. I like to keep up to date with trials, know what is available for when the ovarian cancer returns, and it gives me great comfort knowing that how many trials and how far we are coming with ovarian cancer in these last 4 years since I've had the disease. I've had to make a few changes to my life to help me cope. I've had to teach myself, and some of these things are what Hayley and Gemma has also said. I had to teach myself that it was okay to take longer to do everything. Yeah, I had this chemo brain. I was so slow, and I had to work hard to not be hard on myself. I did have to limit watching the news or reading the news to reduce the chance of the anxious thoughts popping up in my head. In fact, when I got diagnosed, we didn't turn the TV on. We didn't have a newspaper in our house for the first 12 months. We lived in our little bubble, and that worked for us. But I do have to admit, since all this COVID-19, I see a lot more online news. I do notice the anxiety creeps in a little bit. So for me, that's something that I need to work on again. For myself, forgiving myself, stop being critical on myself, love myself more, spoil myself, take time for myself. In the early days, I always felt that I needed to do more. Now, it's okay. I allow myself to have my unproductive days, my untidy days. Physically, I get a lot more exercise now. I found help with yoga and Tai Chi and body balance. And also just simply walking my dog on the beach with my husband just helps my state of mind. And I would encourage anyone, there are lots of exercise classes free through Cancer Council Australia. And that's where I started to exercise again through them. So I'd recommend anyone to look that up. I did try meditation through them, but meditation just wasn't my thing. I do swim a lot, and it took me a while to realise that swimming is my form of meditation. I would get in the pool, count my lengths, and think of nothing else. So for me, that worked as meditation. There are triggers that fuel my fear of recurrence, and I understand from a lot of people it's the same triggers. So birthdays and anniversaries, Christmas, scans or waiting for my results set off triggers of fear, or the death of one of my ovarian cancer friends, that always gets me panicking. New Year is a particularly difficult one for me. While we were travelling and we were in Sydney for New Year fireworks, it was one of the loneliest experiences I've ever had. Fireworks were magical. The whole evening was magical, but I hated every single minute because that sneaky fear of reoccurrence had set in. And instead of enjoying myself, I kept thinking, this could be my last New Year. This could be my last celebration. And it was lonely. I kept thinking about dying. It was lonely, and it was very, very lonely. And most of you know that's what this fear of recurrence can do to us. It quickly sneaks up on us when we least expect it. So self-aware, I'm aware that I have to be very self-aware. Aware of changes in my mood. I'm aware of starting to panic again about my health. You know, is this another cancer coming back? And then it spirals, worries you spiral about the future. But what has helped me cope is I get involved in quite a few projects. It keeps me occupied. I help out at a group called Survivors Teaching Students, where we go into the local universities in WA and we talk to the future doctors, the future medical teams, and we talk about our diagnosis of ovarian cancer, our symptoms, the issues that we had, how it took so long to get diagnosed, etc. And that just gives me the opportunity to give back, but also knowing when you're standing in front of 300 medical students and you can hear a pin drop, you know they're listening, they're learning, and they're taking that on. So that helps me. Also, I help out when I can with Ovarian Cancer Australia. I enjoy helping out with this sort of presentation. I've been involved in think tanks and writing articles for the media on ovarian cancer. I've also contacted a couple of health ministers to highlight our issues of ovarian cancer, but that's another story. I meet up with the women that I started treatment with 4.5 years ago. We stay strong and we stay connected, and we all understand each other, and we all have that same desire to enjoy every day. So I guess that's like a support group. Another thing that helps me is knowing the next step of my journey. I ask my doctor what happens. If this doesn't work, then what happens? I like to be prepared. It helps me mentally. And I had to do this again last week. I was worried about not being able to stay on this trial because of the side effects. And then after speaking to my oncologist, I now know what his plan is. I know there is a plan, so I can stop worrying about that now. I also joined some support groups. So ovarian cancer in Australia, we have a support group in Perth. And the first time I went in there and met ladies who've had ovarian cancer for 11 years was a huge inspiration for me. I thought I was going to die quickly, and then I heard other ladies have a similar story about 11 years ago. And as Hayley said, when I travelled around Australia, we'd pop into Melbourne or Sydney ovarian cancer groups. And I've also joined some Facebook groups that help Ovarian Cancer Aussie and Kiwis support group, Ovarian Cancer UK, and more recently I joined one called PART Inhibitors, Drugs and Trial Support. And again, it's learning, supporting each other and learning from each other, hearing other women talk about their side effects, knowing that these side effects are normal. Another important thing is our carers go through the fear of recurrence. I know that from my husband, what he's going through, and I think probably most carers go through. And we're not always good at noticing the fear of recurrence in our carers, noticing that they're scared about us having the recurrence. I know our situation, my husband needed counselling to deal with his fear of recurrence. And now that my cancer is back, he's needing counselling to deal with the fact that the recurrence is here now. So it's a constant battle for his emotions also. But I have a simple plan for dealing with my fears. My plan is distraction, exercise, talking to people who are in the same position through our support groups. For me, knowing the symptoms and knowing what to worry about and what not to worry about, so I'm not worrying over every single niggle like I used to. And now knowing that the fear will pass. So yes, we do get fear, but knowing that the fear will pass, it's just a wave. That helps. When I was preparing and doing a little research, I find this little extract on the internet. I'm not quite sure. It says it's an anonymous author, but I thought I would like to share it with you today because it covers what cancer cannot do. We've talked about the fear of recurrence, but cancer cannot do. Cancer is limited. It cannot cripple love. It cannot shatter hope. It cannot eat away at our peace. It cannot destroy our confidence. It cannot kill friendship. It cannot shut out our memories. It cannot silence our courage. It cannot invade our soul. Cancer may have robbed me of this blissful ignorance that tomorrow will always be there, but in exchange, it has granted me the vision to see each day as a precious gift to be used wisely and richly. Thank you for your attention. I'll hand back to Vanessa.
Wow, thank you so much, Claire, for giving us, that fantastic insight into your journey and for being so open and honest in sharing your experience. I'm sure everyone on this webinar really appreciates it. And I actually just want to read out what someone has written. Thank you so much, Claire, for sharing your experience. After diagnosis, I had a similar feeling that I described as get busy living or get busy dying, and I chose to get busy living. And also stayed clear of the nightly news. I didn't have room for the world's problems. Best of luck with your future adventures. So thank you. That was from Beck. Very nice. I have had a lot of questions come through for you, Claire, but we are running out of time. So I will just ask a couple that have come through. So I do apologise if your question is not asked. The first one is, how does your husband cope? What support does he have? I know you touched on that briefly, but yeah, anything in particular that he does to cope?
Yeah, so my husband, he wouldn't mind me saying, didn't cope very well. He fell apart. And he took a long time to realise he was falling apart. And I think I was busy trying to deal with my prognosis. And I was getting a bit annoyed at him. Just pull yourself together. I didn't understand what he was going through. And I'm getting him to pull himself together. And quite a few of our friends had spoken to him. And everyone was saying to him, you've got to go and get help. But he didn't see it. He didn't see he needed help. And eventually, a few months later, he went through Cancer Council Australia. He got some counselling. He met some counsellor there, and he now seeing a counsellor helps him cope. He has regular meetings with his GP. He's sitting next to me. He goes to the way he's feeding me lines. He gets his support from. He comes to Ovarian Cancer Australia support group. I know in some cities they don't have the men there. In WA, it's open to our partners, and he gets huge support from other men who are going through a similar situation. And in fact, if I can just say, back in Melbourne when we were travelling, Ovarian Cancer invited the husbands to come along, and it was when he listened to these men talking about how they weren't coping, that's when he realised he wasn't coping, and that's when he went to get help.
Wow, thank you. It's great to hear. I mean, it's so important that we think about our carers, because, as you said, sometimes we don't know what they're going through, and it's really important that we consider their feelings and whether they're coping as well. Just one more question: who did you organise the travelling chemo with? I'd love to travel, but I'm worried that I would need to have chemo while I'm away.
Okay, I had to do a lot of it myself. I spoke to my oncologist, and he was happy for me to do it, and he recommended oncologists that he knew over in the East Coast. And at the time, his secretary, she started contacting the oncologist, and they said, yep, they were happy to see me. And then I just followed it up, made the appointments, gave them dates when I was there, when I would be there, and it was fairly easy. But make sure you confirm it with your health fund provider firstly, to make sure that not all health fund providers will actually pay for your chemo when you're away. But the one I was with would do. So yeah, it was quite simple. A lot of planning. I'd say first step, speak to your oncologist, and they might speak to another oncologist that they know of, and that probably helps if they speak on your behalf.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Claire. There's obviously the oncologists, they communicate interstate, so some really good tips there. So don't let cancer stop you if you want to travel around Australia in a motorhome when the borders open, obviously. Thank you so much, Claire. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to share so openly and honestly. So thanks again. I am conscious of time, so we will have to leave the questions there. I would like to once again thank all our presenters, Dr. Gemma Gilchrist, Hayley Russell and Clare O'Donnell, for the time that they've given us tonight and all that valuable information. We really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for being on the webinar. We really hope that you did find it valuable. The recording of this webinar will be posted on our website. I know a couple of people have asked that. So it will be recorded. It has been recorded, and it will be posted on the Ovarian Cancer Australia website in the next couple of weeks. And you will receive an email with a link to the recording in the next few days. In a moment, you will be directed to an evaluation form. If you could just take a moment to fill that out, as we really value your feedback, and it will help us to plan for future webinars. If you have any other questions that you would like addressed, please don't hesitate to call the Ovarian Cancer Australia Information and Support Line on 1300 660 334. This is a very challenging time for everyone, and we know that some of you may feel that you need that extra support, so please don't hesitate to contact us. Once again, thank you very much for being on the webinar, and we hope to see you for our next webinar later in the year. Stay safe and well, enjoy your evening, and good night.